His dad don't even like him. You could not pay that man enough money to sit in this man's corner. Now that's an accomplishment, Chris. That's an accomplishment. Well done. The most unlikable geezer on the planet. Even your dad don't like him.
How many eggs did you have to eat to fail those two drugs tests? You dirty little
You've tasted defeat. You've been rendered unconscious before. You was eating the canvas, literally.
I'm gonna beat him because I'm a better fighter than
But you're not.
in every single
But
part.
you're not.
The feud goes on.
So this weekend coming up, we've got what a lot of people consider to be a big fight. I'm not sure I'm in that camp, but notwithstanding it, we'll debate it. Chris Eubank Jr versus Conor Benn. This fight's been 2 years in the making, and we've seen a lot of controversy, a lot of challenges. But I want to focus on Chris Eubank Jr. Over the last 2 years, what have we seen from him? What do we think we've seen since the last fight? Or the scheduling of the fight against Conor Benn? We've seen him go in against Liam Smith. We've seen him lose against Liam Smith. How do you think he's developed, Steve?
I think 2 years on, I think he's more mature as a person. I think he's better as a fighter. He's had some great experiences since the fight that was called off. I think the Eubank now is a better fighter than he was when the previous fight was postponed. I think he's better now. He's more mature. He seems to be more control of his career as well, which is also better.
Probably mentally stronger, I would say, Eubank. I mean, listen, you know, when he stepped up to the plate previously against George Groves, obviously he lost that one. He's done it once or twice since then. Since then, he's, you know, the times he has stepped up that he's lost. So this fight for me is down to like levels. You know, he's boxed at a higher level than Conor Benn. And he will draw on that experience to put him through this fight, because Conor Benn hasn't fought anybody of any real note. If you look at his record, there's no marquee names on his.
What do you think of the PR though? I mean, Chris has been. I've always been critical, insofar as it's my right to suggest that Chris Eubank Jr. tells us all the time that he wants to have these world title fights and never actually has them. And what we get to hear more about is how much money he's made, or how much his Las Vegas apartment or house looks like, and what he's doing in poker, and how he can take the piss out of Billy Joe Saunders for whatever reason he wants to do that. Yet I think he's been a brilliant showman in terms of, I think, the way that he's handled the PR around this fight, in terms of he's pretty much marginalised everybody at every press conference, hasn't he? He's had everybody in his pocket. You know, Conor's pushed back. He's put Eddie Hearn in his place for a variety of reasons. I mean, when you look at the PR perspective around Chris Eubank and how that he's conducted himself, what do you think of that?
Top draw.
Yeah?
Absolutely top draw.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He certainly can sell a fight. Yeah. He's sold this. I mean, he has sold this fight, and he's an easy sell.
Yeah, I don't think you can argue with the publicity that Chris has brought to himself in the build-up to this fight. I think it's been first class, the way that he's dealt with everyone, not just with Conor Benn, with Eddie Hearn. Giving the undercard fighters, paying them off as well. That was brilliant.
I was going to say that.
I think that it's been, I think everything he's done so far has been absolutely first class.
Well, you brought that up. Let's have a listen to him saying that to Johnny Nelson.
Staying on the sun now, mate, did you see that he paid all the undercard fighters from back in 2022 when the first fight was actually cancelled? Do you think that mugged Eddie off a little bit?
Mugged him off, mugged everybody off. Because what Chris did, when he mentioned it in the last press conference, I thought, why is that just slid on the radar? Why does nobody make a big deal of that?
That was a class touch,
That's
man.
a massive touch.
Yeah.
And so all of the promoters, all of them, all of the promoters that are out there, and all of the guys that have got the big bucks, and they're on the top of the card, and the fight starts falling through. What Chris Eubank Jr. did, to me, was commendable. Because I've been one of those fighters that's turned up for a fight and the fight's been off the night before, and you think everybody's on AJ money. Not everybody's on AJ money. You know, 5% of the fighters are on mad money. 95% of them fighters have to subsidise their career with a second job. So Chris doing that, he's basically saying, Eddie, Conor, come on, step up. These guys all with some developed amnesia. They've gotten deaf and they've forgotten, thinking, no. And it's up to the press and the public to put them under pressure and say, shame on you. If he can do it, why are you not doing it? If you love our sport so much, if you care for the fight so much, why are you're not doing it? So when he did it, I'm like, you know what? That's a proper drop the mic.
when we listen to that, we look at the positioning of the first fight, or the fight when it was originally going to happen two and a half years ago. The positioning probably was that Chris Eubank Jr. was the villain of the piece prior to the events that transpired around Conor, but the positioning was that Chris Eubank Jr. was the bad guy. We now got a different situation. Do you see it that way? Do you think the fighter going into this fight that's quote-unquote the people's champion, if there is such a thing in this instance?
Eubanks has won that hands down.
You think?
Absolutely hands down. You know, to do what he's done and to pay the undercard out of his own money because the first show was cancelled, Johnny Nelson's got it right. It's a magnanimous thing to do, and his stock would have gone right through the roof. I can't even actually believe he's doing that. It's brilliant. It really is. You know, and I'm sure all the guys that are on that card will thank him for it. They're not going to say no. It's great.
There's one man who looks like he's not going to be present. I've had the pleasure of doing interviews with him, which are challenging in their own way. But Chris Eubank Senior. Let's have a listen to Chris Eubank Senior speaking to Seconds Out last week about this event.
Because I will not be an accomplice to their stupidity, to their circus. You know, it's against the rules, what's happening is against the rules. 147 fighting 160 is against the rules. When Kell Brook was made to fight GGG, it's against the rules. You know, that boy had his eye socket smashed. This is what happens. The promoters, to them, it's just a game. But to the warriors, it's a way of life. Junior, you're smashing an egg against this guy's face. I taught you that. I didn't teach you that. Who taught you that? Did Karen teach you that? Who taught you that? That's disgraceful. I'm gonna stand in your corner. You must be mad. You must be mad. I would never be in your corner. You're a disgrace. You're smashing an egg in someone's face, and then you're trying to justify it. There's no justification for that. There's nothing noble about that.
Right. Let's go straight to you with it, Steve. You know Chris Eubank Senior, you fought him. I listened to him say once upon a time that this was legalised murder. He's directing his guns at Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. What do you make when you listen to those comments?
He's just knocking the whole show. I don't know why he's doing it. If he was involved, he'd be bigging it up. He's not involved. No, he's knocking it. He's talking about moving up weights. All the great fighters have done it. Duran moved up, Leonard moved up, Hearns moved up. They've all moved up weights and fought bigger men. So there's no issue there. I just think it's almost begrudgery that he's not involved, that he's not leading them into the ring and he's not posing. It's not his night, he's not involved. I think he's just jealous.
Do you? Because his original agenda was, and do you not think he had a point about the original fight? If you remember the original fight, when they were suggesting that they needed to get him down from although he hasn't fought at 168 since 2018, his argument was you're boiling him down from 168 down to 157. And we saw Chris Eubank Jr. on the scales, and he did look very emaciated. Do you not think that besides the rancour and the difficulty that's going on between him and his son, where I do agree with you that it seems to be, when you listen to Eubank Senior, it starts, everything's about him. And if you're a man of the world, you want to be your own man, come out of your own, your father's shadow, don't you?
You support your son. You don't knock it. You support him. You wish him all the best. You don't, whether your opinions are right or wrong, you keep them to yourself if it puts down his show. He should be bigging his son up and not finding fault and pointing out.
Do you think, Steve, do you think he's better off, Chris Eubank Jr., without his father being there?
No.
You don't?
Without his father being, on the night.
Correct.
I think he's better off without his father being there on the night. It would be a distraction. But I think his father's presence and his father's history is what made this fight so big, because if they weren't the sons of who they were, it would still be a great fight, but it wouldn't get the publicity and the attention it's getting.
What do you think? Do you think he's better off not having his father in and around him?
No, I think that in an ideal world, it would be much better if his father was around him in the build-up to this fight and obviously on the night as well. Not with the involvement that he used to have, because it was all the Steve, it was all the Chris Eubank Senior show when he was involved with him. I don't agree with that. I think keep him away from the corner, but I think the involvement generally, I agree with Steve. I think he should be there. He should be a part of that. They are their father's sons.
But can he play a back seat though? Would he? If he could play a back seat,
and I think that's the problem.
But can he play the back seat,
Steve? That's the problem, I think, anyway, and that's why they've got to this stage in their relationship and why the relationship's broke down, because perhaps Senior can't take that back seat. But talking about this being a disgrace with fighters going up and unnatural weights. Look, It's a 147, a guy that hasn't boxed at 147 for a couple of years either, by the way. He's been up at 154. Yeah. So it's not a massive jump. It's not like when Kell Brook boxed Triple G. Triple G was a full-blown middleweight. Kell Brook was a welterweight. This is slightly different. We're talking
Chris Senior
price.
isn't making a case for Conor.
Yeah.
He's making a case for his own son.
Yeah.
He's not arguing Conor's position, saying he's a 147 fighter that's gone up to 154, can't knock anybody out at 154 currently.
Yeah.
Now fighting somebody at 160. He's making the case for his son coming down from 168, which, by the way, he hasn't fought at for 6 years.
The last, it was 2019, he beat James DeGale.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's boxed at 160. Yeah, he's boxed at 160 for a number of years, so that shouldn't be a problem. He's got the 10 pounds rehydration clause, which, by the way, happens in the morning. The time he gets in the ring, he's going to probably be 175 pounds.
Are you in the camp that his father's better off not being there? Or
he's not going to be there.
No, he's not.
No, he's not going to be there. He's a man of his word, and I think he says what he means and means what he says. I think the fact remains is that the whole thing is quite sad that, there are personal issues going on between father and son. They've been washed out in the public. They are public property, the pair of them, because they are boxing celebrities. And when they have a dispute, it's been washed out in the public. It's horrible. It's horrible to see. It would be great if they could make it up, but it's not going to happen. So, and I can't see Senior turning up at this fight. He's a man of his word.
No, absolutely. We're going to talk about Conor Benn in a moment, but let's talk about Chris Eubank's approach to this fight. He is, in a lot of people's minds, the favourite. How do you guys see him needing to approach this fight? What does he need to do?
He's just got to hold his ground and let Conor come on. Conor Benn's the emotional guy, isn't he? He's the guy that's going to go forward. He's the guy that's been talking about starting very fast, putting it straight on him. We've heard Nigel Benn saying the fight's over in 4 rounds. If he has that approach, I think that Chris Eubank Jr. is very, very dangerous with that right hand, and that right uppercut that he throws is a lethal shot as well. If Conor comes in square with that, it may be his own undoing. So all Eubank's got to do is just hold his ground, let him come, create the space a little bit, and that's probably, he hasn't got to go looking for him.
Again, it's down to levels. I just feel that Eubanks has boxed at a higher level. He's boxed DeGale, he's boxed George Groves, he's boxed Billy Joe Saunders. All right, he's come up short, but he's had that experience. There isn't anybody on Conor Benn's resume that you could even suggest has been anywhere near of that sort of calibre of boxer, and he knows his way around the ring, so providing he's not weight...
Algeria's a good fighter, wasn't he?
Excuse me?
Algeria was a good fighter.
Yeah, I'd probably beat Algeria. I'm not really...
You're a three-weight world champion.
I'm not really buying into that. Sorry, I just think he's quite ordinary in the bigger picture.
He was at the end of his career anyway, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was at the end of his career. So I just feel that Eubanks' overall experience, Simon, and his size should play a big, big part. The smaller guy's always going to be chasing. The smaller guy, Conor Benn's always going to be chasing Eubank and throwing everything he can. So he's going to tire himself out at some point. And Eubank's smart enough and sensible enough
to stay out of range.
Stay out of range. Keep him at range.
You go with that, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, in conversation, it all looks like Eubank, should win this fight. But when you have power, you're always dangerous. I mean, look at his dad. Some of his biggest wins came when he was on his last legs, almost about to fall over from being hurt and threw these shots from the floor and landed and knocked out the opponent. So the danger's always there. So if Eubank keeps it together, sticks to his boxing experience that he has over Conor and holds it together, he should be successful. But he's in with someone who's dangerous. And Conor has built himself up and put himself under so much pressure with his attitude and his behaviour that he's going to have to come out throwing bombs. And if the bombs land, we'll see what happens.
Right, makes for a fascinating debate.